Actually, I'm very encouraged and, inspired by what I've seen today. This engagement and also the positive spirit, I think, can really change the tide of what is happening in the ocean. I would like to speak to you about how United Nations organizes the whole gamut of activities related to the ocean. And I would like also to speak about what science knows and how it can help to really change the course of events and help ocean to help us to live sustainably. So, as Alessia already said, we live now in the geological epoch of Anthropocene. We all, the humankind, have become a geological force that changes the face of our planet. If we look at so-called planetary boundaries, and these are areas where we operate, we can state that the loss of biodiversity is already beyond control, certain measures. The nitrogen cycle is beyond control. Climate change is getting out of control. And now we can also add ocean acidification and phosphorus cycle. Speaking about the climate change, which is really much on top of agenda, I would like to show to you a perspective I think it will be, that will be useful for your understanding of what is really happening. On the graph that you see now, you have three variables. On top, the blue one is the carbon in the atmosphere. The middle one is the temperature of the atmosphere. And the lower one is the methane. They were inferred from the ice cores in Antarctica. What you see during the 400 years of the past, we had cycles. And the main feature of those cycles is coincidence in curves of carbon and temperature. They go together on this planet. If temperature rises, then the carbon starts to rise. And the carbon, and together with temperature, form a feedback, which is called positive feedback. And they form this shape that of warmings and coolings. We live in the warm period. What is happening now is a little bit different. We simply pumped a lot of carbon in the atmosphere. And now, because we live on the same planet, the temperature will follow suit, and there will be a rise of temperature. This is a very simple explanation of climate change, and there is no doubt that this is the reality. So, this is the cartoon that I wrote myself in Paris in December 2015 in the course of the Conference of Parties on Climate Change. I was at the time really desperate because there was no consensus and there were tough negotiations and people were just not finding common positions. So I felt that we all are in one little boat that is trying to row upstream against the river. It would like to escape the waterfall. What do you think these people are discussing? People discussing who is going to row the least instead of trying to run to safety. So I think this really is the message that we all would like to convey. We really need to engage and work together to escape this waterfall. And this really creates a contract for science. The former administrator of National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration of the United States, Jane Lubchenco, said that, this situation creates really an obligation on scientists, a new social contract. Not only have to passively pass your information and then forget about what is going to happen, you have to really make things happen. And now we are helped in doing this by the frameworks that United Nations created. The Agenda 2030 of Sustainable Development has now, for the first time, a Sustainable Development Goal on the ocean, which is actually a great achievement. This is an achievement of the scientists, of people who work for the ocean, the society like yourselves. Also, we have to operate according to the Convention on the Law of the Sea, which is so-called the Constitution of the Ocean. And we are expanding this convention by creating in this a chapter that will be protecting life in the ocean beyond areas of natural jurisdiction. Now, we also have in the Paris Climate Agreement of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, a mentioning of the ocean. This is very little, but it's very hard to get there. Convention on Biological Diversity, Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, they all have an ocean dimension. So legally, we are free to do what is important to save the ocean. Also, we have some regional and other types of conventions. For example, this Samoa, small island developing states accelerate these modalities of action pathway. So this is all with us now, the frameworks. But the thinking that is associated with this notion of sustainable development agenda, the targets of the sustainable development agenda, is a bit bureaucratic and formalistic. In Sustainable Development Goal 14, we have 10 targets now, focusing on pollution, on protection of ecosystems, on acidification, different types of fishing. We're trying to establish marine protected areas, develop blue economy, and for that we need science capacity. We need to operate according to the Convention of the Law of the Sea. Well, these are good targets, but when you treat a person, and there is a person who has something on the skin, you don't sometimes need to treat the skin, you need to treat the person. And that is the approach that we really need to take. And we look at the Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 goals. Actually, this green icon is about climate, and the blue icon is about the ocean. And the bureaucrats didn't make a connection. I think this is really disturbing, because ocean is really connected to climate, and climate is connected to the ocean. So how to treat this? Science can offer the way. I would like to show to you where the science is going. The Earth system perspective, the new models, they take into account the ocean, the atmosphere, the regions, the industries, waste management, the water management, financial decisions, populations, demographics. This is where the science is going. I think very soon we are going to have an objective instrument that will be helping us in tracing the decisions and will be informing future decisions about the state of the ocean and also about the whole Earth on which we live. Now coming back to the ocean, I would like also to show. You this video. I think we live not on planet Earth but on planet ocean. This is what cosmonauts, astronauts see from the space. And this is beautiful, really. But I would like also to state that this is our life really is dependent on the ocean. That produces oxygen, that regulates climate, produces food, water, energy, jobs, economy. And for those who are in the money business, I would like to show this slide. So the ocean economy is now number 7 in the world and compared to global domestic products of countries. It's just between UK and Brazil. It's big money, measured in trillions of dollars. This is the wealth that is generated by using the ocean. And of course, people think about this blue economy. The most important thing, of course, is blue economy has to be a sustainable economy. The elements of growth in this economy at the moment are to some extent traditional. This is about shipping. This is about operation of ports, mariculture, offshore wind, marine tourism. Everyone is already doing that. What is going to happen in the future will be a change towards more production of renewable energy, towards more biotechnology, and inevitably we'll have to focus on carbon capture and storage. And those traditional, less sustainable ways of using the ocean, like generation of oil and gas and capture fisheries, are not going to develop as fast as the other types of activities. And there will be, of course, new activities. I'm particularly excited by the development of genetic resources in the ocean and medical prospects that stem from there, because the properties of fauna and life in the ocean that live in very interesting and difficult conditions sometimes, they're different. And they bring such qualities that are very important for medications. There are very significant prospects for overcoming the issue of resistance to antibiotics, to treat some forms of cancer, and to start getting some success in the treatment of Alzheimer's disease because of the medications that will be originating from the ocean. So, once again, healthy ocean means a protected climate and means sustainable development. But, the current situation is a little bit different. And Sam Dupont is going to speak about ocean acidification. And this group of people coined this phrase that ocean is getting hot sour, and breathless. I think it's very good statement because, it really alarms people. And Francois Bailey is going to speak about the World Ocean Assessment. One of the key conclusions of this undertaking of United Nations was that they stated that we are running out of time to start sustainably using and protecting the ocean. So this is the message that we need to take very seriously and start moving forward. So what are the problems? Pollution. What you see about the ocean is not what you get, because under the surface of the ocean, we have a lot of trouble. This trouble comes from plastic pollution, it comes from harmful algal blooms, it comes from oil spills like accidental pollution, and even we have new types of pollution like sargasso that is now inundating the coasts of Caribbean islands, basically preventing the development of tourism there, affecting the life of many locals there. When it comes to fisheries, I think we can state that now we have the stocks that are fully exploited or overexploited or collapsed, and almost no stocks that are developing. But there are some prospects there still. When it comes to more kind of scientific aspects, we have more than 600 different zones of minimum oxygen. And what is really important that together, warming and acidification act on marine life, taking the conditions of life out of the zones of sustainability. It's not only that act of oceanification or warming or pollution or the extraction by tropical cyclones. It's the combined effect that is really difficult to manage. Now, if we go a little bit above the ocean, we will see that, there are some areas of the world that are more prone to problems than other areas of the world. For example, the sea level rise pace is shown on this upper pane, and you will see that it is happening mostly in the western part of the Pacific. This is the area of very strong tropical cyclones that are superimposed on sea level rise. And this is also, you will see that pane, and you will see that on that pane that there are many cities that grow now very fast. Population grows. And then they live in massive cities. They pump water of the aquifers. And because of that, and also because of the mass of the cities subside with the speed which is higher than sea level rise. Combined together, this really creates a technological and societal problem that needs to be overcome. So this really requires scientific solutions. And there are solutions. Tokyo has now stopped sinking because they learned about the process, they stopped pumping groundwater, and they found technological solutions for that. And of course, we shouldn't forget about tsunami. Tsunami takes away a lot of lives. And we really need to warn people about tsunami. So this is one of the tasks of the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO. This is an organization which has now 148 member states. This is the only specialized entity in the United Nations system that is dealing with ocean science, observations, services, capacity development. And this is, I think, a very important role for society that we play. What we do, that we increase international cooperation in ocean research, observations, data management. This all goes towards production of different services, towards assessment, and this all serves management of the ocean and governments. This is all is about capacity development. And all we do is capacity development, communication of the necessary agreements and the necessary science. What we have achieved, for example, in terms of observations, is this observing system. It is rather dense in the most part of the ocean, apart from the polar regions. And also it stretches down to the level of roughly 2,000 meters. We have good picture of the physical part of the ocean, but less good picture of biogeochemical, biological, and ecosystem variables. This is where we are going with the best science that we can produce. But what is important about this? When politicians feel proud that they can state that 93% of excess heat due to greenhouse gas effect after the industrial era was consumed by the ocean, They don't know that there's a huge work that is embedded in taking the measurements. And the system that we have in place now worth $1 billion per year. Now we have an operational system for tsunami warning. And I showed to you by the star the location of the one recent tsunami when 1 million people were evacuated. Just few lives were lost, huge infrastructural damage, but lives were saved. This is how tsunami system works. This is the system that we, in the Intergovernmental Oceanography Commission, operate. And of course, we cannot forget what happened recently, the Irma, the Maria, and the other cyclones that really devastated the Caribbean, actually destroying the tsunami warning system that was in place there. In order to predict this, you have to observe the ocean and ocean temperature and the structure of the mixed layer, of the upper layer of the ocean. You really make, if you know it, it's possible to predict the intensity and frequency of the hurricane. So that is why ocean observations are so critical. Now, when it comes to management of the ocean, and we already saw that slide, there are several science-based ways of doing so. This would be coastal zone management, marine spatial planning, establishment of marine protected areas, regulation of fisheries, different ways to adapt towards climate change, also ways of mitigate climate change, in the future, carbon capture and storage. And of course, this requires regulation that may be organized through market mechanisms, but less and less they work. So we have to have a kind of imposed regulation on the use of the ocean. And of course, the use of the ocean, and you people who are involved in yachting, they know that, you know that the use of the ocean space is prone to conflicts. Dredging, aquaculture, tourism, they all pose different requirements for the use of space. And the way to combine those requirements is so-called marine spatial planning. So in 2005, the Intergovernmental Oceanography Commission of UNESCO conducted the first conference on maritime spatial planning. At the time, we had less than 1% of the area of exclusive economic zone covered by this approach. This year in March, we conducted the second conference together with the European Commission. Already 13% of the area of EEZs was covered by marine spatial planning. By the end of 2030, around 50% will be covered, and this means that there will be less harmful use of the ocean space based on science. There are some other elements of control of what is happening in the ocean. This is a picture taken from the Google-based system of observing the fisheries activities in the ocean. So the world is changing now. There is now much higher awareness of what is happening in the ocean, and people are engaging in committing towards the ocean health. So this huge conference that was referred to several times already today took place in June this year in New York at headquarters of United Nations. This is the first conference on sustainable development, and it was devoted to the ocean, I think, which is very symbolic. People came up with around 15 types of voluntary commitments, and 500 of them, roughly, were devoted to science, because science is fundamental towards understanding what is happening in the ocean. And on this photograph, I'm shaking hands with the President of the General Assembly, who is now the United Nations Secretary General envoy on the ocean. So Peter Thompson, Ambassador of Fiji, is going to continue his services to the ocean, and I think under his leadership, it will be possible to keep the momentum on protection of the ocean in the United Nations and in the wider society. So what ocean science can do? As I already said, ocean science can observe the ocean, generate data, it can model and predict the state of the ocean, and that information can go into an information system. And IUC, in the Intergovernmental Oceanography Commission, has a free data policy. People can get this data and use information to make informed decisions about the state of the ocean, about management of coastal zones, and establishment of marine protected areas. So one way of dealing this would be to converge this knowledge into ecosystem-based management that is based on very good science. What is also important that an ocean is still an area when you can anticipate certain discoveries. I wouldn't say this about geographic discoveries. You wouldn't find another strait or an island, but you would find probably some new things that one never knew. And this is a recent, I would say, discovery that was spearheaded by the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. This is about massive vertical migration of biomass that following the light. The twilight zone, by diurnal oscillations of this biomass are really huge. And this is really a picture that changes the conception of life in the ocean. So big things may happen. So this advantage and the excitement of the new discoveries, unfortunately, is only available to developed countries. But we need to think about the whole world. This is a picture from the first Global Ocean Science Report, which was produced by the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO. This picture shows the map of the world in which the areas of countries are distorted according to the number of publications about the ocean. And you will see that there is huge USA, huge Europe, China, India, Korea, Australia, Japan. But you know, in Africa, you can only see South Africa there. Africa is non-existent on this planet. This is what we need to change. And the way to do this would be capacity development. IUC is really moving forward on establishing a trainings network of centers that would be working in different languages, would be really conveying to the world that science and make possible technology transfer that exists in more developed countries towards less developed countries. And of course, we speak about ocean literacy. I would like to praise my staff, Francesca Santoro, who is really active in this field. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. One of the organizers of the conference. You know, people need to know about the role of the ocean and what we do to this. One way of doing this would be our new initiative, the proposal for an international and hopefully United Nations Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. We hope very much that by the year 2030, we are going to have a different picture of the ocean. The ocean is sustainably managed, with science that is really serving the society. And for that, we need to have the leverage leverage the ocean science and combine efforts in making this a mainstream activity of United Nations, governments, countries, and society. And this is my last slide. I would like you to take home the following message. I think this conference started with a very good tone. This is about ethics, about care, about community, sense of community. There's also, I think it's very important that we embark on expanding the education and ocean literacy, which, for example, in a textbook, when you speak about photosynthesis, you will see a picture of a tree, and this is less than 50% of the oxygen. If there is a picture of the ocean, it will be correct textbook, but we need to change that. So, once again, there is a new role of science now. Science is no longer passive. There is a new contract for science, and we need really science-based solutions that can drive political decisions. And I would like to see the oceanography in the year 2030. It's not only a curiosity-driven science that is kind of voluntary, that is based on the interest of publishing. It has to be service to humanity, that is of highest standards, that is demanding, and that is sustainable.